In the end, the deeper message behind this entire speech has very little to do with performance and everything to do with presence. What many women crave most during intimacy is not intensity, athleticism, or constant stimulation. It is the feeling of emotional safety, closeness, and being fully experienced rather than simply physically engaged with. That is the truth many men never fully learn. The positions described throughout this speech are powerful not because they are physically impressive, but because they remove distraction and create connection. They slow everything down. They replace urgency with attentiveness. They invite eye contact, synchronized breathing, soft touch, and emotional openness. And for many women, those qualities create a far deeper sense of intimacy than any performance ever could. The lotus position teaches the importance of complete presence. It asks a man to stop hiding behind movement and simply be there emotionally and physically. Spooning represents trust, comfort, and emotional surrender. It reminds us that intimacy is not always about being seen, but about feeling safe enough to relax completely into another person's presence. Together, these positions reveal something profound about female psychology. Women often experience intimacy emotionally first and physically second. When the emotional connection feels real, the body naturally follows. What this speech ultimately highlights is the enormous difference between pursuing pleasure and creating connection. Many men are taught to focus on doing more, moving more, proving more. But true intimacy is often built through the exact opposite: slower breathing, softer touch, longer pauses, quiet closeness, genuine attentiveness. These things communicate care in a way words often cannot. And perhaps the most important lesson of all is this: intimacy is not about impressing your partner. It is about making your partner feel emotionally held. When a woman feels safe, seen, accepted, and deeply present with you, intimacy becomes more than a physical experience. It becomes emotional trust expressed through the body. That is why the strongest lovers are rarely the ones trying hardest to perform. They are the ones capable of slowing down, paying attention, and offering the rare experience of complete, unhurried presence. In the end, the deeper truth behind this entire speech is not really about positions at all. It is about emotional presence. It is about understanding that for many women, intimacy becomes most meaningful not when a man is trying to impress, dominate, or perform, but when he is fully attentive, emotionally available, and genuinely connected in the moment. Each of these 5 positions represents something far beyond physical technique. The lotus position represents complete emotional closeness and shared stillness. Spooning represents safety, protection, and continuity. The chair position reflects trust, freedom, and the ability for a woman to feel fully supported without judgment. The legs on shoulders position symbolizes vulnerability and complete openness offered through trust. And the seated oral position represents devotion, attentiveness, and the willingness to place her experience fully at the center without ego or expectation. What connects all of them is a single emotional principle. Women often crave intimacy that feels emotionally grounding rather than performative. They want to feel held, not rushed, seen, not evaluated, desired, not managed, safe enough to relax completely into the experience without feeling pressure to perform or respond in a certain way. The speech repeatedly challenges one of the biggest misunderstandings many men carry into intimacy: the belief that better intimacy comes from doing more. More movement, more intensity, more control, more effort. But true connection often grows from the opposite: slower breathing, softer attention, longer eye contact, patient touch, quiet confidence, emotional steadiness. These things create an atmosphere where intimacy becomes deeper, more honest, and more emotionally fulfilling for both people. And perhaps the most powerful lesson of all is this: presence is more intimate than performance. A man who can stay emotionally grounded, attentive, and fully engaged without rushing toward an outcome creates an experience many women describe as unforgettable. Because in those moments, intimacy stops feeling like an act and starts feeling like genuine connection. Ultimately, this speech is reminding men that the strongest form of intimacy is not built through technique alone. It is built through trust, patience, emotional safety, and the willingness to truly be with another person without distraction or urgency. When a woman feels emotionally held in that way, the physical connection naturally becomes deeper, warmer, and far more meaningful than anything created through performance alone. In the end, the central truth of this entire speech is far simpler than all the positions, techniques, and descriptions might suggest. What truly shapes a woman's experience of intimacy is not complexity, effort, or physical mastery, but the emotional quality a man brings into the moment. The real difference is not in what is done, but in how present, how grounded, and how emotionally attuned he is while doing it. The positions described throughout this speech are powerful not because they are physically impressive, but because they remove distraction and create connection. They slow everything down. They replace urgency with attentiveness. They invite eye contact, synchronized breathing, soft touch, and emotional openness. And for many women, those qualities create a far deeper sense of intimacy than any performance ever could. The lotus position teaches the importance of complete presence. It asks a man to stop hiding behind movement and simply be there emotionally and physically. Spooning represents trust, comfort, and emotional surrender. It reminds us that intimacy is not always about being seen, but about feeling safe enough to relax completely into another person's presence. Together, these positions reveal something profound about female psychology. Women often experience intimacy emotionally first and physically second. When the emotional connection feels real, the body naturally follows. What this speech ultimately highlights is the enormous difference between pursuing pleasure and creating connection. Many men are taught to focus on doing more, moving more, proving more, but true intimacy is often built through the exact opposite: slower breathing, softer touch, longer pauses, quiet closeness, genuine attentiveness. These things communicate care in a way words often cannot. Across all 5 positions, a single pattern appears again and again. When intimacy slows down, when pressure disappears, and when attention is fully directed toward her experience rather than performance or outcome, something deeper begins to emerge. The body relaxes, but more importantly, the mind relaxes. And when the mind feels safe, the body follows naturally. This is where true intimacy begins, not in movement, but in emotional safety. The lotus position shows that closeness without urgency creates a powerful sense of unity, where two people stop performing and simply exist together in shared stillness. Spooning reveals how deeply trust and emotional security matter, offering a sense of protection that allows a woman to completely let go. The chair position demonstrates that surrender is not about losing control, but about feeling safe enough to be fully oneself while being supported without judgment. The legs on shoulders position reflects vulnerability at its highest level, where openness is only possible when trust is absolute, and the seated position highlights devotion, where attention becomes the most powerful form of intimacy because it communicates value without needing words. What ties all of these together is not physical technique, but emotional intention. Each position becomes meaningful only when it is guided by patience, awareness, and genuine care. Without that, they are just shapes. With it, they become experiences that can deeply affect how a person feels seen, valued, and connected. The deeper message is that many men misunderstand what intimacy actually requires. They believe they need to do more, move more, or perform better. But in reality, what is often missing is the opposite: slowness, presence, emotional steadiness, and the willingness to prioritize her experience without rushing toward an outcome. When a man stops trying to perform and starts simply being fully there, everything changes. Because intimacy is not measured by intensity, but by connection. Not by speed, but by depth. Not by effort alone, but by emotional awareness. A woman does not just remember what happened in a moment of intimacy, she remembers how she felt inside that moment, whether she felt safe, valued, respected, and genuinely held. And that is the final conclusion this entire speech leads to. The most powerful skill in intimacy is not physical technique at all. It is the ability to create emotional safety through presence. When a man learns to slow down, to listen without distraction, to hold without expectation, and to stay fully engaged with his partner's experience, intimacy naturally becomes more meaningful, more connected, and far more lasting. In the end, everything returns to one simple principle. When she feels emotionally safe with you, she opens. And when she opens, Intimacy stops being something you do and becomes something you share.